There we go. Number 1. Look at chapter 4, verse 1. I saw a door standing open in heaven. Think what's going on. John is old, weak, most likely mistreated. He was a prisoner. Did you guys read in the news this week that a prisoner in a prison kept writing to his family saying, there are all these ants and other bugs in my cell, and when I sleep at night, they're crawling on me. And of course, they're in prison and incarcerated for whatever they did, and they're there. And they came in one morning, and the article said, sadly, they were not just normal, the little tiny ants that are a nuisance. They were like fire ants, and they killed him. And he died in the prison from the insects. Of course, now they've emptied the prison, and they're remediating that problem. But John is in prison. He's on a prison island. He's an old man in jail, probably headed toward death. So what do you think you need to get encouraged? To be reminded that heaven is a real place existing at this very moment. Here's John doing whatever he was doing on Patmos, and all of a sudden Jesus shows up on Sunday morning. And it said John was already in the Spirit. We saw that in chapter 1. He was in the Spirit on the Lord's Day. In other words, even though he was in prison, he was still tracking with God's schedule. And the first day of the week is the Lord's Day. It's the day that Christ rose from the dead. It's like Easter's once a year, but every Sunday is a reminder that on the first day of the week, Jesus rose from the dead. So John was in the Spirit, thinking about Jesus, risen from the dead, and all of a sudden he sees Jesus, and Jesus talks to him and gives him the tour of the churches, and then look what he does. He said, you want to get the proper orientation to what's going on in your life? Look at heaven. And what he shows him is, heaven is a real place, but look what's in, this is chapter 4. Chapter 1, 2, 3. These are how many times the word throne shows up in Revelation. Once, twice, bingo, that's the chapter about the throne of God. And this is where we see that right now, the main thing about heaven is not you're going to sit on a cloud with a harp. It's the throne of God. The big thing, every time we see heaven, cover to cover in the Bible, every time, throne, 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 through the rest of the book. God, as our world gets dangerous, as we feel trapped and old and lonely and insecure like John was on Patmos, what does God want us to think about? Throne. What about the throne? That the Father we all need is the one seated on the throne of heaven. I don't know if you need a father, but a lot of people in the world need fathers. This is a fatherless world. Like fathers are absent. Either they're working all the time, or they left, or they're detached, or they're discouraged. And so many people go to therapists and counselors because they don't have a father figure. You know what they say is wrong in the inner city? What they used to say, now there's nothing wrong in the inner city. But what they used to say was wrong in the inner city was there was no father influence. These young people were growing up without a role model, a father. That's what fathers always were. They were role models. They were the biggest cheerleader and the biggest coach and the friend going through life with you, teaching you what you needed. And they were modeling love for your mother and all that kind of stuff. Well, when you talk about father nowadays, some people don't have a father. Some people don't like their father. I already told you about my father. Do you all remember how he disciplined me? Grabbed me around the throat. That's my earliest memory of my dad. And I would stand real still because my dad was a prize-fighting boxer and his hands were as big as a baseball mitt. I don't know how they got so big. And I'd go, ugh. And he'd start squeezing. And if I was really bad, he'd lift me off the ground. That was my dad. Nowadays, I don't know what they would do to him, They'd probably take me out of the home. By the way, he got saved and he was the best friend I ever had, and I was holding his hand when he died at age 92, and He used to pray for me constantly. But the Father, the perfect Father all of us need, is the one that's sitting on that throne.